Good morning, CSL,
Morning.
and happy Mother's Day again. Without mothers, who are we? Our theme this month is compassion. I care for others. Ernest Holmes wrote, compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover the divinity in each other. Compassion is the outpouring of the divine givingness through all. When the members of a community love one another, that community is solid, prosperous, and happy. Hello, CSL. Love alone can solve the world's problems and bring about the day of universal peace. You and I have certain people upon whom we lavish a great deal of affection. This is both natural and desirable. But would we like these laws any less if we increased our love to include all humanity? Suppose we make a daily habit of feeling that we like people and they like us. We belong to them and they belong to us. In a very real sense, everyone we meet is part of our own family to love and to enjoy. Please say the affirmation for May with me with purpose. I am rich in spirit, prosperous in all ways, and open to receiving and compassionately sharing my good. I care for others.
As divine beings created in the likeness and image of the divine, each and every one of us here today are designed to be the presence of love. So, this message is really about all of us. We are all designed to be that presence of love. We are designed for compassion. And we inherit the ability truly to care for others. And I love that beautiful quote that reminds us to expand our compassion and our caring beyond those of our close knit loved ones and out beyond so that our hearts become as wide as the world. You know, Albert Einstein had a beautiful quote that relates to this. I want to read this to you. It's really powerful. This is Albert Einstein. He said, our task must be to free others by widening our circle. Our task must be to free ourselves. Obviously, it frees others too. Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. And what a beautiful quote that takes in not only this theme of the month, which is compassion and caring for others, it also embraces our dedication to the planet. This is the season of the earth. That's what all of our posters are that are on the wall. It's a way of reminding ourselves that we must extend our compassion and our love beyond the confines of just our area, of our families, and so on, and to truly begin to take action, spirituality in action for our entire planet. And it all begins, we hear this over and over again, but I want to remind us it all begins within. It also all begins with what goes on in our own minds and hearts and the ways in which we are inspired to move into action, what is ours to do. So here's the thing our planet, I believe, is calling to all of us. We know, we've heard, if any of you have been tuned into the media, you've heard that our planet, there are things going on in our planet that are catastrophic and that something must be done. And So, what I'm knowing is the work that we do today here is a great way to dig a little deeper within us, to unveil that spiritual warrior that we are, so that we are tuned in to what is ours to do. And, in our community in general, this spiritual community, we have made a higher level commitment to eliminate plastics. Now, we still have a little bit of plastic left over from before, and we don't want to just throw that in the trash. We'll use it. But Michelle has been active in getting us. She just finally picked up some more silverware so that we'll have silverware, plenty of it, even when we have our potlucks. Uh, we are little by little eliminating all of the other things that we have. So just bear with us as that goes down to nothing, and then also using paper products that are recycled products and recyclable. So thank you for Michelle for being a spearhead in that. Let's give her a round of applause. And by the way, my other daughter, Christy, and my son-in-law are also very active in environmentalism. So I'm blessed to have a family that continues to edge me and to, to also teach me and educate me on the importance of all these actions that we take to eliminate uh, plastic is one of the first big things. Dan and I, when we were walking, we were on vacation just for a short time this week, 4 days in the middle of the week, to go down and visit my sister and celebrate my birthday. And Dan and I found ourselves walking along the beach and picking up plastic, that we could then throw away. And we noticed other people too that were going by and doing the same thing. So people are being activated, and I'm really grateful for that. Yes, yeah. In addition to that, and in addition to that, it means speaking up at restaurants and places that you go to. Michelle at Hockessin Athletic League noticed they were using the plastic straws and plastic cups, and she went and styrofoam, and she went and spoke to them, and they said that other people had gone to them as well, and they're going to be converting over to paper products at there. So wherever you go, please speak up, because if you don't speak up, they'll think it's okay and they'll keep doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, acknowledge and affirm those who are doing it, please. Mm. That's great. I love it. That's great. Okay. So let's just take a greater look at what might be blocking us from really moving forward more fully into the spiritual warriors that we are in truth. I want to look at a hurricane analogy and how that relates to the conditioned mind, because it's the conditioned mind that gets in the way. And so think about the hurricane. The hurricane has these phenomenal winds that spin around the center, around the edges. And in the center is what? The eye, the calm of the storm. And our the source book that I'm using for this month is a book called The Eye of the Storm. It's not EYE, it's an I, the eye of the storm, meaning our I am presence, that is that calm presence from which we can view any stormy situation in our lives and act with wisdom and compassion and kindness and love. And believe me, it's a work in progress in my life. I'm aware of it, and I understand how the conditioned mind is set up so that we get triggered and the brain shuts down and the emotions, go crazy, and then we say and do things we wish we hadn't. So that's what this is all about. It's about being aware of how the conditioned mind works so that we can be more mindful if we have to leave, and cool down and calm down, we can do that. But what it is that we can do when we're highly aware of how the conditioned mind works. So Gary Simmons, who wrote this book, The Eye of the Storm, talks about these winds or conditions for conflict, the strong winds that are in the perimeter. The conditioned mind hangs out in the perimeter where all the winds are. And so it's learning how to shift out of the conditioned mind and into that solid I am presence, that presence of light and love. So one of the things about the conditioned mind is that there is inner conflict, not only conflict between others, but inner conflict. And here is the great, grand inner conflict that goes on. It's that protection versus creation modality. In other words, the desire to feel safe and valued, that protective quality, versus, and here's the conflict, being that creative drive to fulfill our soul's purpose. So it's the desire to protect ourselves versus getting out there and doing what needs to be done, doing what is ours to do. So we have that going on. Then, this is the conditioned mind. Then, in the conditioned mind, if we ever get hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, the stress level goes up. Breakdowns in communication increase. So that's another aspect to be aware of. So, we can check in with ourselves if we notice we're in a lot of stress. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And so that we can take care of those things before we deal with a major communication. Also, here's another aspect of all of this. I've said over and over again, the universe is for us. That's what last week was all about. The universe is for us. The divine is for us. Everything is designed to support our evolutionary process, our waking up to who we are in truth and waking up to who everyone else is. The ability to be able to look and see the divine in everyone and everything is that that direction that we're all moving, and to do it 24/7 so that we're always living in that compassionate center. So conflict has a value. It's an evolutionary driver when we truly understand what it is. It brings us to the very edge of our resourcefulness, the resourcefulness that we have with the conditioned mind. It brings us to the edge, and because we're not knowing what to do or how to be in order to resolve the conflict. So it causes us to stretch beyond our conditioned mind and stretch and get into that inner presence, that where we're sourced in God, sourced into the divine, so that we can access higher dimensions of consciousness, brilliant solutions. So conflict has a value. Keep that in mind as we move through all of these, what Gary Simmons calls the four winds of conflict, which are the four winds of the conditioned mind, WINDS. The first wind or condition of the conditioned mind is a sense of separation. So when we were born completely innocent. And I go back to that story of Adam and Eve, which we know from the New Thought perspective, these stories from ancient times and ancient scriptures are metaphorical, or they're metaphysical. They have a deeper meaning that we want to translate for ourselves, that are full of wisdom. So here's another perspective on Adam and Eve if you haven't thought of this before. So we're born into the world like the innocence of Adam and Eve when they were born into the world. We have no concept of good and bad, right or wrong. We're just born these beautiful, innocent beings. Think of a baby or think of a young child. We were born whole, perfect, and complete, and beings of infinite potential. So unless you had parents as the so-called models of parenting, Mary and Joseph, you were probably not told that you were of divine birth, that you were whole, perfect, and complete, that you were that you're already that beautiful divine presence that you need to be. Instead, what happens is that others project their beliefs onto us about who they think we are and what they think life is. And what Don Miguel Ruiz says in his book, The Four Agreements, is that 90% of the knowledge that's been imparted to us is false. 90% is false. Think about that. So, a false perspective of what life is, what it's all about, and who we are. I love I love this analogy by Don Miguel Ruiz. This is so beautiful. He calls it the parasite in the mind. He said because we have eaten the fruit of the tree of human knowledge. The 90% false stuff. We've eaten of that fruit of human knowledge. We've believed it. And of course, when you're little and you're innocent, you believe whatever anybody tells you about yourself or about life. So this parasite then took control of the mind, producing a distorted self image and a distorted view of life. We learn to create dramas. We learn to look outside ourselves for all that we desire, which includes wholeness, happiness, worthiness, abundance, you name it. Looking out, thinking it's out there somewhere. So we learn to control others, avoid conflict, resist change, and to be right. There's one of my favorite sayings in A Course in Miracles is, would you rather be right or happy? It's a good reminder. So these are learned behaviors. This is the conditioned mind that I'm talking about. So the parasite or sense of separation keeps us from experiencing our divinity and experiencing the divinity in others and in all of life. And so when we talk about the divinity, the sacredness, the importance of how everything's interconnected and all works together for our highest good and the highest good of everyone on the planet and everything on the planet. That sense of separation keeps us in a very self-centered state and not really too much concerned about others. And I think that's what happens when we get into, making plastic things that harm the creatures and the sea animals. There's a self-centeredness to that, not looking at the bigger impact and not taking responsibility for it. So all of this sense of separation keeps us from experiencing divine love and compassion, especially in the midst of conflict. So that sense of separation. The second wind or condition of the conditioned mind is misperception. And I love this quote from the Talmud, the Jewish scripture, that says, we see things not as they are, but as we are. I'm going to say that again. We see things not as they are, but as we are. This is the ultimate example of what projection is, how we happen to have a belief structure or a viewpoint or a perception of life that's based on all of our these limited beliefs, this 90% false knowledge that we've taken in. And so what happens then is we misperceive things a lot as a result. We see things in a very limited way. And so conflict then is an opportunity to question our beliefs, to question our perceptions, and to expand beyond them, to get a bigger, broader picture of what this life is all about, to open our hearts more to one another. So my personal growing edge, I'll share this. I've decided I'm going to be more vulnerable. My growing edge in conflict is the misperception that when another person is angry, that they are that and they're maybe blaming me and so on and so forth, that I get defensive. I get defensive when really, more accurately, see if I could stay in my I am presence more fully, I would realize that the source of the anger is within them. It's what they're projecting onto me. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't take responsibility and work things out with the other person, but it's the awakening to the awareness that when someone is blaming me, they are coming from their conditioned mind and their misperceptions about life. Because the truth is that even if people have disagreements, they can work it out civilly if they can both stay in their I am presence. Things can be worked out. But as soon as somebody's caught in the conditioned mind, we're reactive. Then what? Right. Exactly. Yeah. So again, my big intention, I keep going there over and over again. That's what my meditation practice is to learn, even if I find the conditioned mind is being reactive, to take a breath. Remember this higher truth of what's going on. This other person is coming from their particular conditioned mind, and so that I can be then a healing presence, a presence of love and compassion in the midst of what's going on. So that gives you kind of a hint into how all of this works. Next week we're really going to go into the attributes of the I am presence that are the ways to move out of sense of separation and misperception, and the other two that I'm going to be talking about. But it all has to do with getting back into alignment with that I am presence. Competition. Competition is another conditioned mind state. So when what we need or value gets in the way of someone else's needs and values, conflict results. And here's the problem with competition. We know this. If you've ever been experienced in competing with another person, you know that there's a winner and a loser. And the loser feels angry and resentful and hurt. And the winner, even though they feel temporarily victorious, what they're really doing is masking the inadequacy and the false beliefs that they have. It's getting reinforced. And that's why it's important to really break the cycle and move into these models of collaboration and working things out for win-win, because nobody truly wins in a win-lose situation. Nobody. The relationship suffers. So competing with others comes from not knowing our inherent wholeness and worthiness, and not knowing that the universe is designed to provide for everyone's needs, ours and everyone else's. And that we have within us, when we stand in that I am presence, we have the resourcefulness to come up with the solutions that are necessary for both of us to be in a win position, so that we both win. Everybody wins. So again, more on this next week, where we'll look at the way to counter that, or the antidote for competition. Defensiveness is the final one. When we become defensive, here's what happens. Our whole entire energy field collapses when we're in defensive mode, and we have a certain resonant field, and then everyone else around us also gets into that defensive mode. And that's why often you'll notice that when people are really frightened of animals, the animals, respond to that as well, and will sometimes get aggressive because they feel like, oh, there's something wrong here. They can pick up a certain energy. So defensiveness then is this collapse into the fight or flight mode to ward off danger. And it implies that you think there's an adversary out there, that there's an enemy. And therefore a threat. And so people then in this mode distance themselves from one another and from their true selves ultimately, from the wholeness and the resourcefulness that they are. And defensiveness then is a sense, is evidence, is the word I'm looking for, of our belief in separation. So again, the four winds of conflict are rooted in the conditioned mind. And we are more than our conditioned mind. We are not our conditioned mind. That's the key that we go back to over and over and over again. We are not that. We are not the conditioned mind. We are the I am presence. We are the one who observes it all and who can choose where we're going to be in the midst of any situation. When we do this, we learn to find our worth and our value, our happiness and our abundance where? Within us instead of from other people. We learn that everything we could ever need is within us all the while. And it contributes to interpersonal harmony. So I'd like you to spend this week noticing, awareness is the first step toward transformation. So notice that the times when you get defensive, competitive, when you feel separate from others, and when you misperceive what's going on. Because when we become aware of that, we can watch it and we can witness it. We're at choice. So that's what I'm inviting you to do this week. And to also remember, above and beyond all that we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe, governed by spiritual law, and that love is the essential nature of who we are. The mother, the divine feminine, lives in each and every one of us. And for this, I am so grateful. Happy Mother's Day. Namaste. And so it is.